All right. Good morning, everybody. It's House Edge Live with John on Casino Gaming TV. I apologize. It's 7:41. Supposed to start 7:30. I actually did a 10-minute show. I had oh my god. You'll notice that I sound different today. I got my same microphone up here, but I was messing with the controls yesterday, trying to make it sound not so scratchy. And to do that, I had to set my software up to record only, not to stream. So I started the show at 7:30 and I was recording the entire thing. It wasn't actually live. I'm like, where's all the commenters today? So anyway, I've already done the first 7 minutes of the show. So now I got to go back and redo it all. So let's just run through that and get to letter K, shall we? Let's see. What's first up for us? We're going to talk a little bit about why does Ken, my favorite guy, say gambling sucks, right? Gambling does suck. And it sucks for lots of reasons. And hopefully, as I go through my ABCs of Gambling series, you're finding new reasons to hate the casino, right? New reasons to want to take all their money because they do suck, right? They exist to bankrupt you. That's it. The casinos are here to take all of your money. They're not satisfied until your rail is completely empty. Like that's what they're there for, right? With a smile and a slap on the ass, they're like, that's all right. See a sucker. They're here to take everything. And God forbid you get good at it. They will kick your happy ass out of the casino. Just the way it is, right? Now we have some things on our side that we can use to kind of combat that, right? We have our heads. The bridge framework is largely a mental framework. I said it yesterday. These are all tools that you have here that most people don't use. They don't understand, like Skill and Luck says, what their bankroll is capable of, right? You got $300, you're playing at a $10 table, you want to win $100, good luck, man. It's hard. You got to win $10 10 times. You got to beat them 10 times more than they beat you. That is almost impossible, right? Think about that. What is your bankroll capable of actually getting done? It's difficult, right? Unless you catch a super hot streak and can lean into it correctly, your bankroll has a lot to say about what you're going to do. Matter of fact, Skilda says here, casino crap seems easier when you have an enormous bankroll. George is doing a series where everybody gets 10K. Well, God, if I had 10K, right, you have places to go. You can start with a bigger bet in the J curve from yesterday and come down to something reasonable. You got $300, you can't start high. You got to start low and pray. A whole different way of playing the game. Your bankroll talks to you about that a lot, as does your appetite for risk. What can you tolerate? At $300, can you tolerate black chip bets right away to get out of there fast? Can you tolerate that risk? If you can't, those two things are in conjunction or not conjoined, right? They're going to have a problem, a mental problem, right? These things that we talk about, identifying when to play, where to play, how to play, what state of mind you should be in, having discipline, having goals, all those things together are mental games that you play with yourself or ignore, and they hurt you if you're not locked in. So let's get into it. We're going to talk more about this, these types of things, right? The ABCs of gambling to me are becoming largely mental games and how to stop some of them. But really, it's fun to me to find, words about gambling that start with these letters. It's actually kind of a challenge to find interesting things. I'm really kind of digging how we do that. Today we're on letter K, which is about compounding knowledge. I want to add to the sessions so far and talk about this idea of compounding your knowledge, because honest to God, every gap in what you know and don't know, it costs you money. Not once, but every time you play. And I want to expose some of that knowledge gap, right? And that are bleeding bankrolls. And we'll dig into some, I think, hopefully, some interesting concepts. And here's what I really want to hop into with the letter K. So the first thing we'll get into, of course, is the knowledge gaps. We'll talk about reasons why knowledge is one of the most important tools that you have, your brain, right? We'll talk about keeping records. And I'm going to do a deeper dive in future shows about logging and tracking and that kind of thing, because there's different types of records we want to keep. Today, I want to just talk about sort of the basics of why record keeping matters. We'll spend a little bit of time, maybe a lot of time today, on the Kelly criterion. It's the big meat of the day for me. Kelly's very interesting. This is a deep dive you can take, a lot like sports betting, where you'll be like, wow, there's a lot to this, but it's super, it's if you have an advantage, it's the thing you have to really understand, okay? We'll look at the K spread, which is a term maybe a lot of you don't know, the K spread, but we'll talk about it today very quickly. Again, it's more of more of an interesting vocabulary word than anything else. And of course, the thing I've learned the most in the last bundle of years, right? So I've been gambling since I was 20, right? 2021. I'm 57 now. The last 4 or 5 years, I've had the channels on YouTube, right? And I've tried every strategy. I've tried every possible thing. What I have found is this works. Keeping it simple. The more you dilute bets, the more you move shit around, the more you try and do all these crazy things to solve the puzzle, the more problems you end up causing yourself. So keeping things simple is great. Having a strategy is great as long as it's an easy strategy, right? That's what I'm looking for. So there's that one. And then we will close the day with a couple special case. I got a couple of I think fun little things to kind of end the show with. So stick around to the end and we'll get on that. All right, here we go. Let's hop in and we're gonna do the first one here, which is knowledge gap. So you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's an important thing. You don't know what you don't know. And in gambling, ignorance is costly. Like every gap in your knowledge is potentially money flowing out of your bankroll, right? If you ever heard of or read John Patrick, he's the guy, right? Here's the book, right? This is the book, the John Patrick book, right? He's got videos from the 80s on VHS, right? The guy he's kind of a guru of gambling. He was professionally gambled until he's on in a nursing home at 95 years old, gambling on the Super Bowl right now. The guy's still doing it, right? Never had a job. He gambles, right? His big four. Ken, yell the big four out in chat, right? Bankroll knowledge, money management, discipline, right? One of those knowledge, right? And by the way, do any of those concepts sound familiar? You got guys like me and Ken out here every day spewing out bankroll, knowledge, money management, discipline, right? Theory, logic, trends, all the things that matter. Almost none of them are things you can hold on to. All of them are things that are here. Okay. So let's have some fun. Answer some questions. You can put your answers in chat, but really honestly answer the questions. Okay. What is the house edge on the game that you played the most? And I don't want to say low or it's pretty good. Get the actual number on the game, like Baccarat or roulette, or the bets you place in that game. What's the actual house edge? Put my favorite bet house edge is in chat right now. I dare you to. Most people don't know it, but you got to know that, right? If you play blackjack, what do you do? Ken, you can answer the question. What do you do with a soft 18 against the dealer 9? It's one of the most misplayed hands. What about splitting fours against a 5? Right? If you play video poker, what's the difference between a 9-6 and an 8-5 table, 8-5 game, in the expected return for that game? What's the difference in the return? If you play craps, and of course, hopefully you all know never to play the big 6 and 8, but what's the house edge on the big 6 and 8 versus placing the 6, right? If you don't know the questions or the answers to those questions, that's an instant knowledge gap for you. Things you should know before you get into it. And not knowing it costs money. There are people who don't know that the big 6 and 8 is different than the regular place 6. There are people who don't know that putting a bet on the 6 with max odds, $5 or $10 put bet with max odds on a 20x table is better than placing the 6. If you get your 6 up to 150, it's better for you to do a $10 put bet and 150 in odds. You're better off. There's a point in time where things cross over for you. You got to know those things, right? The player who doesn't know, for example, the correct hold on a Jack-10 suit in video poker makes the wrong discard, right? If you don't know that insurance is a 7% edge on a game with a 0.25% edge in blackjack we're talking about, you take it for protection, you're in trouble. These things aren't opinions, that by the way, right? All these things, and again, here is 200 pages of fact, not opinion. There's hours of Patrick video on this stuff. Fact, not opinion, about knowledge of the game. Knowledge of the games you're playing, right? All of this stuff is settled math. The math doesn't care that you don't know, right? My son and I went to Vegas for his 21st birthday. He got drunk as a skunk, and so did I. We were walking around, and we went to go eat. We were actually at a karaoke bar, right? We were at a piano bar. I'm sorry, piano bar at Harris. We go to eat. And on the way back, he's like, "Hey, Dad, what's that one?" It's Mississippi Stud Poker. I don't know what the hell that is. He goes, "Let's play it." I'm like, "All right, let's walk up." Again, drunk Johnny throws up, a couple $100 for each of us, right? And we sit down at the table, didn't know what the fuck we were doing. Boom, 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 boom. We're like, where'd our money go? And back we go to the bar, right? Like, if you don't know what you're getting into, what the house edge is, how the game even works, you might as well just write him a check, right? It's important. And you can't change that stuff, right? It's just what it is, right? Learning, I think, has a guaranteed positive return. It doesn't make your EV positive. It makes your EV less negative, okay? So my advice to you is don't put 1 red cent on any game you don't know inside and out. If it's not part of your DNA, do not play the game. Again, I said it yesterday, it's why I don't sports bet. I don't sports bet because I don't know it inside and out. I don't play poker. Although I do know poker inside and out, I don't know Hold'em inside and out. And frankly, I smile too much and make faces, so people would take all my money. I don't play games that I don't have complete confidence in, okay? Don't put 1 red cent, 1 nickel on a game that you don't understand. Here's the book for you, another one. I'm going to get it. I should have had this ready for you, but these. I know that this is a person that he actually shit all over John Patrick one day, so he's kind of a persona non grata in our community, and I get that. However, the book that he wrote is good. The Gambling 101, 102, 103 books. These are tiny little things, little dinky books, right? Michael Shackelford. These books are good. It's basically a page or two for every game in the casino. He's got like Mississippi Stud, Texas Hold'em. It's like literally 2 or 3 pages, and it's like, here's how the game works. Here's how it's dealt. Here's the way it gets paid, and here's a simple strategy for it. Super simple, easy read. It helps, right? It's too bad that he's the guy that wrote it, I guess, right? Is the takeaway there. I recommend the books. They're actually good. Maybe someday Fat Johnny will do his own series of books and videos with every game in the casino, how it works, what you need to know about it, how to play it. Maybe I'll do my own version of that someday. Knowledge gaps. Important, please. Knowledge of the game. If you don't have knowledge of the games, you're going to get freaking destroyed. It just happens. Okay. Now, next up, keeping records. All right. As a gambler, right? If they're winning, ask a gambler. Ask a gambler. Are you winning or losing overall? How's your life look as a gambler? Right? I know the answer to the question, but most people will hesitate and they'll give you some bullshit answer, right? The pause tells you what you need to know, and it tells you what they don't know because their memory's lying to them, right? So memories they lie, right? It lies. Human memory is terrible at tracking things, especially gambling results, right? Because we're wired for survival, not accounting. Some people only remember the big losses and only remember the big wins, not all the shit in between, all the variance in between there, right? Big wins, that dopamine hit we get, right? It's seared into your memory, right? Crazy shit that happens, right? The time I saw the 6 11s in a row, right? Losses get filed under like the variance bucket and they fade away most of the time, right? And over time, this creates this fictional narrative to you, right? Like I'm about even. I break even over my life. Yeah, I'm a slight winner, a little bit. I'd be ahead if not for that one trip, right? Me, I say, I'm ahead over my life because I've had 2 or 3 specifically, very big hits, very, very, very large wins that I know. And I didn't track stuff back then, but I know those wins are still positive to all the little losses that I take, right? And so, yes, lifetime winner, not because I win every single time. Hit a couple of massive jackpots in slots and on craps, and that's covered up a lot of bad play, quite frankly, over the years, right? I'm better at logging things now than I ever was before, okay? But would you bet money on those kind of statements? Oh, I'm pretty good. I'm about even. Is that the way you actually approach your life, right? When you sit down thinking you're better than your results actually can show you, right? I think keeping records can fix that. And I'm not talking about doing complex things, right? At this stage, just basic stuff like what did you play? When did you play? Where did you play? What'd you buy in for? What'd you cash out? How long were you there? Like the basics. Like keep the basic statistics. Maybe even the strategy that you chose to play. That's it. Something simple like a notebook works. A simple spreadsheet you can build on Google Drive for nothing, right? I wrote an app, you may know this, that works, right? It doesn't matter which format you want to use, right? It matters. I think after 6 months of record keeping, you'll start to know some things, right? Your actual win rate is probably lower than you thought it was. Which games treat you best and worst would be interesting for you to know, right? How long you play before good results deteriorate, right? Whether your good casino is actually good or you just get lucky there once in a while, right? I think records cure self-delusion, right? They're the foundation for everything else that we talk about in this episode and other shows, right? You can't apply Kelly or your bet spread or analyze your spreads if you don't know the actual results, okay? So at the end of the show, I'll walk you through the logging system that I built on the next steps. You can see how that thing works and some of the things you can do with it to help you keep better records. But I don't care if you use that app or you make your own thing. Keeping records keeps you honest and it keeps you on task. So keep records. Just the takeaway there. All right. Now, let's talk Kelly because Kelly's interesting. If you haven't done the work on this, by the way, just like yesterday, I told you about a couple of YouTube channels that I like. For Kelly, just go search Kelly Criterion on YouTube. Not right now, but after my show's over. Search Kelly Criterion and bookmark them. Bookmark 5 or 6 videos. You get a little rabbit hole going. Kelly's very interesting. And it springs forth from another classic math problem that, again, it could start out at a college, right? The 50-50 coin flip thing, right? Now, here's the difference, okay? We've done the experiment before. We say, if I'm going to flip a coin 100 times, it's going to be 50-50. How would you bet? Some people lose, some people win in that scenario. What the college did was they took the next step and said, okay, let's change the math. Let's say that it's a coin flip. It's a 1-to-1 winner. It's a 50-50 chance. But I'm going to tell you up front, you're going to be in a variant where you're going to get 60% heads. We know in advance it's going to be 60 heads and 40 tails. How do you bet? This is interesting. When you know in advance, you've got an edge. Now, when do you know you have an edge? We'll talk about that. But when you have an edge in gambling, how would you bet differently? This was the birth of the Kelly Criterion. Okay, the people who studied this, how do you make the most money when you have a known advantage ahead of time? Okay, it's all about bet sizing, right? Too little, you leave money on the table. Too much, you go broke before the math saves you. The answer is there's a little formula to it, and it's probably telling you to bet a little less than you think it does, if you can believe it, right? So we will rewind, hard word to say, and start with some basics, right? Kelly only matters, number one, if you have a positive expected value. If you've got that sports bet, whatever, the arbitrage, you know you got the advantage, right? In craps, there are advantage plays in craps, believe it or not. When you have that advantage, potentially, how do you bet that? For most recreational gamblers that are playing house-backed games, right? Craps, roulette, baccarat, there's no advantage, right? Unless you got a cheating roulette dealer. If you're playing a negative EV game, Kelly can't help you. There's no optimal way to size losing bets. But for the situations where you do have an advantage, card counting, for example, right? You got a positive expectation in the deck. If you're a sharp sports bettor, if you're playing poker against weak players, video poker with comp money, that's pushing you positive. If you've got a don't pass bet, that's free, right? Free play don't pass bet, or your don't pass bet is through. Now you are a 60% winner in the game, or a 60% expected value with a don't pass bet. That's a positive EV bet once it's through, which is why people like Dylan work so hard at finding ways to get that bet through, because once it's through, you are the hammer, right? Kelly can't help you because you don't know that you're the hammer until the bet's through. You follow? But people think that they can use Kelly. Anyway, if you have a hammer, or if you have if you have the casino set up as a nail, Kelly's the hammer, right? Let's look at the next piece of it though, all right? Because there's more to it than just that. The formula is simple. Your bet percentage is your edge divided by the odds. For an even money bet, it's simple, right? You bet your edge as a percentage of your bankroll. So I'll make it more concrete for you, okay? If you count cards and the true count indicates you have a 2% edge. Now, if you're a card counter, again, if you don't know this, knowledge gaps, know this, right? When the count is +1, +2, +3, +4, the true count. The higher that gets, the more edge you have. The edge might be 0.1%, it might be 2%. Let's say the count gets to where you have a 2% edge on the next hand. Your bankroll is 10%. The Kelly criterion says bet 2% of your bankroll, $200. Not $500 because I'm feeling it. Not necessarily $1,000 because the count's so great, unless you've got a really planned march on that count spread, right? Kelly says go to 200, 2% of the bankroll. If edge is 1% on that particular play, it's $100. That's your spread, right? Again, 0.5%, you bet 50. It's conservative. People think Kelly is a super aggressive thing. It's not. It's conservative to a degree, but it's all about bankroll percentages. And when you know what your edge is, that's the percentage that you play. Okay. It's telling you to bet small relative, I think, to what most people would go. Now let's look at sports betting, right? You've identified a line that you believe is mispriced. Okay. Estimating a 4% edge on a bet paying even money. Like, let's say, maybe it's 1 to 10 or 110, -110, but last week's Seahawks game, great example, right? That bet was completely, that line was completely wrong last week. I could have told you that, anyway, it doesn't matter. That would have been a great Kelly bet, right? Your bankroll is $5,000. Kelly says 4% edge, 4% of 5,000, $200. That should be your bet size. That's where it lives. It's that percentage of your bankroll that you bet based on the edge you've got. Okay. Let's say you're wrong about your edge. What you thought it was 4%, it's actually 2%, right? So full Kelly at 4% means you're over betting in that case, right? Because variance happens, right? And that will increase the variance and speeden your risk of ruin there, right? So most pros use fractional Kelly, typically half, quarter, sometimes even a third, right? Half Kelly, the same sports bet, it's $100 instead of $200. And again, we're talking about $5,000 bankrolls betting 200, not $5,000 bankrolls betting $2,000. Okay. You sacrifice some of the growth rate for safety, for that margin, right? But the input to Kelly, your edge, is never perfectly accurate unless you honestly know. Like, again, even on craps, right? When you get a don't pass bet through, your average is 60% positive, right? But it could be the 6 or 8. It could be the 5 or 9. It could be the 4 or 10. The amount of edge you have on each of those bets is different. So the Kelly base, you can't know that ahead of time, so you go half Kelly or fractional Kelly. So that's a way to give you room, a little bit of room anyway, to be wrong. Be wary of overbetting, right? A lot of people miss the fact that betting more than Kelly doesn't increase your growth. It decreases it while really increasing your risk of ruin. If Kelly says bet 2 and you bet 4, you're not being aggressive, you're being dumb. If the math says you'll grow your bankroll more slowly and you're more likely to go broke in that case, right? It's counterintuitive, right? More risk doesn't always equal more reward when you're above Kelly. It equals more risk and less reward. Again, this was a math problem given to PhD students. This is settled science. The way that Kelly works is settled. It's a math problem. When you've got the hammer, this math problem is the solve for it. Okay. Now, before you start applying it, be honest. Do you actually have an edge, right? If you're playing a standard casino game without an advantage technique, Kelly does not apply, right? Can you accurately estimate or quantify your edge, right? Overconfidence is going to be suicide. Most people overestimate their edge, which means they overbet. That's why fractional Kelly is a big thing. Do you have the discipline to bet small when Kelly says go small, right? You have the discipline to flat bet before you get the advantage, right? When you've got what feels like a lock and Kelly says bet 1.5%, can you actually do that? This is a disciplined game. Again, mind games, right? Kelly is a tool for professionals. It requires really good edge estimation, really disciplined execution, and patience. You got to let the math work over those many, many, many trials. It's not get rich quick. It's not a go broke while grinding formula. So there it is. Kelly is very, very, I think, interesting. So yeah, watch the video. Again, go search YouTube for Kelly criterion videos. It's fascinating. And again, you're looking at sharps in sports betting. You're looking at card counters in blackjack. If you can find the game that'll support it. Most of us, other than a clean don't have any chance at Kelly. All right. Next up, K spread. This is simple. This is more of a definition. Your betting spread your K spread, is the ratio between your smallest and your biggest bet. For card counters, that's how card counters in blackjack extract their edge, right? When they have a positive spin, a positive count on the deck, and they know it's time. This is when the deck is thick. They go from $25 to $1,000. That's the K spread. That's right. Because when the getting's good, you get good. That's the card counter professional way. It's way beyond Kelly. It's a system like Kelly that they use where they kind of march their bets through the count, right? But it's a known thing. Card counters talk about spread all the time. A 1-2 spread, I won in at 1-8. This isn't just jargon for like just the sake of talking over beers, right? It's the mechanism they use to turn this little edge into massive profit. It's where percentages become dollars, frankly, right? So here's how it works, right? The count's negative or neutral, you bet the minimum. You bet 1 unit, right? Count goes good, you increase your bet proportionally. A true count of +2 might mean 2 units. 4 might mean 6 or 8 units, right? Your spread is that range, where you're willing to go and where you do go. The spread means when conditions are best, if you're a 1-8, you're betting 8. When they're worst, you're betting a 1. And it matters because the edge in card counting is teeny tiny. It's maybe 0.5%, maybe 1.5%, depending on where you end up, right? If you flat bet it, might as well not card count. You have the same edge, right? If you have bigger bets that need to happen when the deck favors you, that's where your spread, your K spread works, okay? But the trap of this for most of us, the recreational players, is spreading your bets without information it's theater, right? I bet bigger when I'm feeling it, superstition, right? I press my bets when they're winning, trend following. That's not a spread. That's a progression system that doesn't change math, okay? In other words, and I say this a lot, if you're playing craps and you start with a $25 5 and it hits and you press, and it hits and you press, that's different than saying, I'm watching the table and 3 5s have hit, so now I'm going to put $100 on the 5 because it's trending. That's the difference. That's where the spread is different. If you knew 5s were more likely, that bet would make sense. But since we don't, that bet is ridiculous. Follow me? It's about building, not going. In blackjack, you don't build up to $1,000. You go from 25 to $1,000 because it's time. Okay, that's the K spread. And again, it only makes sense if the bet size and the edge match. For card counters, it does. Again, the count tells them when they have the edge and how much the edge is and what the spread should be. For the rest of us, we have no information to act on. You're betting randomly. So be aware of that, right? The other thing with the K spread is not just your bet sizing, right? It's important, but it's the heat you get, right? Because casinos, they watch for that. They're looking for bet spreads because they indicate card counters, right? Recreational players go from 25 to 200, might get a little tap, right? A counter with a 112 spread needs to be careful about how they ramp that up. And I've told you, used to be, hand shuffled game, great. Used to be a pit boss would have to notice that at your stack size. Right now, your checks have chips in the middle, computer chips, right? So the camera can sense, the tables now can sense there's 1 unit, there's 11 units. The table knows what you've got, which triggers something. Security or the boss gets a buzz on his pager, something. It's all automated now. Your spread is known to the casino, maybe better than it's known to you. So I think if you spread without an edge, you're just doing random betting, right? You're praying, right? If you're varying your bets without information, you're not being strategic. Okay, you're being theatrical. So just kind of be aware of that. All right, next up is the KISS method, keeping it simple, stupid. Now the casino's best customers are the ones that are convinced they've got some complex system that works, right? And it's just, simple's boring. Simple's also profitable, right? Complexity is where the casino, I think, hides edge sometimes. And we'll talk a little bit into that here in a second. But you walk into any casino bookstore and what do you see? What do you see? You see books, right? Casinos sell all the books. They sell all the books, right? And they all have the best way to beat the house, right? They sell the business of blackjack in the casino. They sell all of the books. Why? Right? First of all, Most of the books that promise you ways to win are Martingale, pattern recognition, hedge betting, card sequencing, dice setting, right? If any of those books actually worked, right? There's two questions here. If they worked, they wouldn't sell the books, right? Number one. They also know that people, generally speaking, are dumbasses. So you're going to buy the book, go to your hotel room, scan the book, go downstairs and think you've got it wired. You have a knowledge gap. Okay. They also know that's the case too. So people get the book, feel like they're selling wolf tickets, come on downstairs and blow their money. The casinos aren't stupid. When I tell you they exist to take your money, this is what I'm getting to. They will sell you the book that tells you how to beat them, knowing you can't beat them, knowing that the book is full of misinformation or misleading information, knowing that you'll take the book, pretend to study it, and burn your entire budget. They don't care about that or about you. Okay. But going back to keeping it simple, complex systems hide their true costs, right? The Martingale feels brilliant until you realize that you're risking $1,000 to win 10 bucks, right? As you got to rinse and repeat for that to happen, right? The inevitable bad streak will wipe out months of profits, right? $1,000 to win 10, $1,000 to win 10, $1,000 to win 10. You lose $5,000. You got to win $10, 500 times now to get caught back up again. The Martingale, with a cap on it, the way that they've done it now, is destructive, right? Second thing is this: complexity creates decision points, and decision points make errors. Lay this to get that out. Once that's out, do this. Once you get one hit, these two numbers go down. Get a second hit, build up the field. The field gets hit, and you're moving shit around, right? You're getting away from optimal play. You got bets that are counteracting each other. You've got house edge being paid twice. You got fatigue. You got emotions. You got 3 fields in a row. You don't want to take the field bet down, even though your strategy says you have to. It's right. You're like this. The clever hedge that you planned, right? It becomes a convoluted mess at 2:00 in the morning, right? Complexity, oftentimes, you're just rearranging the math. You're not changing it, right? You're moving this bet here. Nothing changes, right? Think about laying a number to save a don't pass bet. Both bets win and both bets will lose the right amount of times over the course of your playing multiple sessions. That'll happen. If you watch Ken Knows Gambling, he did the series where he was doing his don't pass spread, and he's got, the lay forward to get the thing out. I guarantee you, if we spun all those videos back to back, and logged it all, there would be exactly the right number or close to it of come out sevens where the 4 saved him, and just as many 4s that there should have been where the 4 got lost or the 10 got lost, right? It all works out in the end. You're paying house edge on both those bets, ultimately, right? So that's a simple one lay to get one bet out, right? There's more complex crap you can do. And the more complex you make it, like I said, you're just rearranging the numbers and you're giving the casino what they want, right? It's all a bleed backwards, right? Again, basic strategy of blackjack, simple. Stick to it. It's easy. Follow it, a decent progression, right? A pass line with max odds, right? Come bets with odds. Don't pass bets with odds. Don't pass bets with the correct odds like Ken does it, right? 9-6 jacks are better with the correct holds. J curving up or a basic RUP for your bet strategy. All these things are simple and they work. Simple games, lower the house edge, play it right for limited time with the right money. It's boring. What does Ken call it? Nipples on a pickle or bumps on a pickle? That's the point, right? Guys that played professionally don't do a bunch of crazy shit. They're doing it simple and they're focusing on what they got to focus on and getting the hell out of Dodge, right? You admire these guys and they aren't using systems you haven't heard of. They aren't holding it back to write a book later on. They're playing simple things for simple reasons, right? And they execute them with discipline. The secret here is no secret, just simple principles applied consistently, right? Complexity is a con, I think, right? The house edge doesn't care how clever your system is, right? Simple strategies executed perfectly, they beat the complex, I think, every time, especially over time. You're going to bet and be a gambler that goes back in more and more and more often. I think you're better off keeping things as simple as possible. All right, now, last one. We got a couple of special Ks for you, okay? And I'm going to do, by the way, a series of the ABCs of gambling YouTube. We're going to get highlights of every YouTube channel that does gambling content that starts with the same letters. We're going to have fun with that too. But there's a couple here that I want to call out, right? The first one is old Chiro. Midmo Yo and remember Sideshow Gamble. They had a little feud a while back, right? Chiro has since he wore the fedora, passed away. Chris from Sideshow Gamble's in the military, and he's, varying levels of deployed and home, and right, he hasn't been doing a lot of YouTube. Chris coined the term the mixer for the 516. For whatever reason, the 516, he called it the mixer. Chiro, Midmo Yo, who wears the hat, they were kind of having a little bit of an online feud, and Chiro renamed it the KitchenAid mixer. So the K here is the KitchenAid mixer, which we have one upstairs. It's black, not red, but it reminds me of those two. Every time my wife makes anything in that mixer, I'm thinking Chiro and Chris. And it to me, that was such a beautiful time in YouTube history. Like when those two were duking it out, and they had the big Royal Rumble that we did with them. It was just some of the most beautiful YouTube we ever had. It was when our community was at its strongest, I think. We had everybody locked in. Shows like mine were getting 50 people a day to watch, not 23, right? We had this amazing, like really great bell curve, and that was the top of the curve. When those two were out there doing their thing, they were smaller channels, but they really did bring all of us together. So the KitchenAid mixer will live on. I'm going to twist David's arm a little bit. So when we get the craps game done in our app, and he does the stick calls again, I'm going to try and get him to call the mixer as we go into the stick calls there, because I think it's again, that represents an important part of YouTube to me. So I love those guys. I love Chris, and it was a fun. You're right, it was a fun feud, wasn't it? The greatest of times. And again, our community was so strong back then, right? We've kind of there's a lot of new channels. A lot of the older guys are not doing as much content, so it's changing, right? There's a new guard coming up. The other special K that I've got is, of course, my friend Ken from Ken Knows Gambling. And again, we'll do the K's of, when I do the real K's of like the YouTubers that match the letters. We'll do a little piece on Ken, but Ken's a good friend of mine, and I wanted to give a chance to call him out and just say, I love Ken. I love what he stands for. I love that he's a keep it simple, stupid guy. He makes sense to be on today's show because keep it simple is Ken's way, and Ken is just good people. They're throughout the course of your life, you meet some people that are just good people. Ken's good people. Ken is just good, solid, no bullshit people. So again, we'll do more of this. I'll get to everybody when we do the ABCs of the craps channels, but I thought it was important to call out the KitchenAid mixer today, and Ken, because recently Ken and I have been talking a lot more, and our shows are much more intertwined, right, over the last few months. So Ken's been on my mind a lot recently. Ken's written a couple of books. By the way, he's got a book about music, which I'm not gonna get too much into the book content with you, but he got a book, and he's got a book about his gambling career. So go to Amazon and search for Ken Keith. You'll find his 2 books. What is the first one called? I think it's called Before He Was Called Bocephus. The second one is his gambling. My Life as a Pro Gambler. So go check out his 2 books on Amazon. All right, I think that's about it for today's show. Letter K was fun. I've been looking forward to talking about Kelly for a while, because Kelly Criterion, I think, is a really misunderstood thing. So it's a chance for me to tell you about it and set you forth on the path of reading more about it. Because those of you who do count cards, those of you who do sports bet, you got to know how Kelly works. I think also with all that we do, my job is to disseminate knowledge, right? Push it out there. Sometimes it's my own. Sometimes I consult other people. Sometimes I read about it, right? But whatever knowledge I've gained, I'm giving back, right? Whatever wisdom I've earned, I'm giving back. K is all about you using that to compound what you know and compound your knowledge and start being a more informed player. And don't go out there worrying like I did at one point about how do I play this game? What does this thing even do? And burning $400 for no good reason, right? That's, I think, an important piece to it. All right. So let me get back in here. We'll look at, I'm going to do some Q&A, really quick Q&A because I'm way late for my I have an 8:15 meeting every day, so I have to kind of get into it. Couple couple of questions here. One from Dice Dr. Dan. It looks like I've established my don't bet and now have the advantage. You should lay the odds. And Kelly will tell you. And again, there's a I think, and I'll probably do a show on this, Dan, but there's a Kelly bet on the odds. Okay. So once you have the hammer and you know what the hammer is, okay, let's say that you get to the 6 or 8. Okay. You've got a 45% chance to win that bet, right? Or 40, you're 55-45 is the ratio there, right? You got a little tiny edge, not a big edge, but a little tiny edge. Okay. What is the right size of the odds on that edge? That edge might be whatever it is, 4 or 5%. So it's a tiny one. That's what your odds bet is, right? And your odds, you bet the Kelly odds size for the win amount, not for the odds total, right? So for example, in the 4 or 10, when you've got a 66% chance to win that bet, right? Your lay bet, your lay odds, right? Let's say Kelly says you should have, you should be betting $100. Well, your lay odds has to be 200 because you're looking to use Kelly to win the amount you're going to win, not the amount you're going to place on the bet. So odds on the don't are a little different, and they have to be played very carefully. You need bankroll for that because you're extracting a larger part of your bankroll than Kelly says you should, but Kelly's all about the win amount, right? It's all about that win amount. So I'll do a whole show on the don't pass with odds on Kelly, so we can get that. All right. Check for PCs. There's no other comments in here besides that one. It looks like you guys are talking amongst yourself quite a bit, which is good. I guess that's it, folks. I got to get out. I'm late for my work, so I'll leave you with our inspirational quote of the day, which is this. Today is a terrible day to be a problem, and I love this quote. I told you yesterday. I love this quote. This is actually from a commercial for an AI tool. That solves problems. And I think we as gamblers are learning how to be better problem solvers. Solve the problem in your brain. Solve this problem. Solve this problem. Go out there with all the knowledge, all the skill you can muster up. Lower that edge as much as you can, right? And be the solution to the problem. And again, these quotes that I give you don't always just stand to gambling, right? I would like to say that any problem that's out there in the world around us, I'm the solution for that problem, right? I would not want to be a problem with me around. Let's just put it that way. I think y'all can endeavor to be the same. You have a great day. Love y'all. It is hump day. So I will see you all tomorrow, Thursday, for HIJKL is tomorrow. And we'll do some logging. I'll show you some of the Nexus app, and that's it. Y'all have a great day. Love y'all. God bless. Bye.